Now you might be thinking, whoa, that's a sick monster, but it's not actually a monster, and I'm gonna tell you exactly why. Creatures are an interesting thing in horror games because they make up like 50% of the gameplay, which is basically half. I've recently dipped my toes into creature design, and my toes have learned so much. Along with that, I've made some gargantuan, colossal, absolutely enormous progress on the whole rest of the game. Now, I wasn't always a master at making creatures. For example, here's my first attempt at this game where we have a bear who I can only assume got attacked by a construction site and will most definitely eat you dead if he doesn't teleport away first. Then we got an anglerfish who was literally a swimming bear trap with a convenient light bulb above it to make sure the player never accidentally steps in it. Then there's this ape attached to an eye with an umbilical cord, which is a super cool concept, but it runs like that. And then there's the Wendigo, who's the main creature, and bro just looks silly as hell. I am all about improving myself, so I'm just gonna go for it and make my first creature. Now obviously it's not a good idea to start with something huge, and that's why I'm starting with a snail. Which is technically huge, but like, it'll be a parasite for the forest which you can use to gain blood. So I modeled this snail, went for a shower, and when I returned I realized not even Batman himself can make me put this shit in the game, so I sat back down and remade it, and thank god I did that. These things will be found on the corpses of people or animals, as the snail attached itself using them chompers and starts sucking out their radioactive blood. So if you find one, you can smash it to gain some for yourself. After that, you walk into a really empty room and realize the game isn't done. So my idea is that there's going to be a bat which does not have 3 huge nuts. These are abnormal growths caused by the radiation in the area. Due to this, bro is unable to take flight, so he'll just slowly crawl after you, dragging its large growths behind him. Now this bat is blind as a bat, which means he's got very good hearing and will definitely nibble on your toes if the opportunity arises. And so far I've made these creatures using my mouse, which is such a negative aura activity that I decided to get into using my drawing tablet. And it must have heard that I'm about to use it because it straight up just broke the next day. So I followed this manual, which told me to turn it off and back on again. Now lucky for me, it already did step 1 on its own, but that's about as far as I got. Which means I had to splash out, and by that I mean spend like half my money to buy something I already had. And I'm no Da Vinci, but with this new tablet I definitely leveled up my concept art skills. Marginally. I have this idea in my mind of a wolf which has really strongly been affected by the radiation and can no longer hunt, so it goes around scavenging or looking for weak animals. And I fucking cooked. I mean, I got pretty much exactly what was in my head, and I was not off to a strong start. You won't see him much as he only follows you if you're bleeding, so it's very important for you to keep a medkit with you at all times, and a shotgun shell, and a syringe. I actually gave this a name. It's called Inventory Management. TM. And I don't know why, but my concept art never matches my final model, which means I'm either trash at drawing or modeling, and something tells me that it's not the modeling. And I still can't afford a voice actor or music for the game yet, which is why today's episode is sponsored by Skillshare, who have very kindly decided to put some money in my pocket. Skillshare is a humongous online learning community where you can pretty much learn about anything you want. I took up knitting for shits and giggles, and now I spend my evenings feeling like a real grandmother. You can learn pretty much any creative skill, like game development, which is actually the final boss of creative skills because you gotta know sound design, level design, 3D art, 2D art, marketing, programming, texturing, animation, fucking 10 more things, then 20 more things after that. And Skillshare has every single one of those. I personally plan to use Skillshare to learn how to draw because my drawing looks absolutely egregious right now. I've been drawing all my life, but I still somehow need to start on square one, which is kinda sad, but Skillshare made a very convenient learning path system. This is where your recommended course is in an order that will allow you to start from 0 and fully master whatever skill you want by the end. Their classes are learn by doing, which is really cool because learn by not doing kinda sucks. The leaves are falling off trees and it's getting cold outside, which can only mean one thing. It's time to learn. So if you're interested, the first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today. Damn, I feel like a real YouTuber now. People have been saying how cool the lore for my game is, and I've always kind of just said like, yeah, of course it is, man, I made it. But the problem is I don't actually know the lore to my game. All I had so far was about 9.5 bullet points on the back of my maths copy, which I threw out. So I think it's time to sit down and actually build this world up. I took brainstorming shower after brainstorming shower for like 4 days straight, which is really cool because that means I've already done my showering for the next 4 days. So I can focus just on writing. I won't give too much away because I want most things to be discovered through exploring, but the setting I've picked is 1980 Soviet Union and it's not Chernobyl. I've also sat down and planned the whole ecosystem. For example, the water has rapidly multiplying bacteria which dissolves flesh, which is why you might notice that a lot of animals will have exposed bone on their face and legs, and I think this adds a lot to a game. I also have to change the oh wow, Polish text to Cyrillic to the Polish text to Cyrillic to fit the setting, which as you can clearly see here, has been changed within the game. And I've been advised that I might have committed a crime by using a stock image here, so I took the image and traced over it, therefore making it mine. I hope that's gonna hold up in court. Make no mistake, I've always been dog shit at environment art, which is really weird because that's the part I enjoy the most, so this time I'm actually gonna try and improve. First, the inside of buildings right now kinda just looks like the inside of a cube, which I don't really understand because the outside looks nothing like. So my confident ass sat down one afternoon with like 2 reference images and I thought I'd have this done lickety split. And to absolutely nobody's surprise, for the next week I went through like 26 different styles, and right when I was on the verge of settling for this crack den, I found Jamie, who could clearly see that I was clinging on for dear life. So he gave me a bunch of advice, literally from the industry, and this guy's made some crazy stuff. And with his help, I'm basically on his level now. This is definitely leaps and bounds above my first 25 tries, and I just can't thank him enough for literally saving my game's environment. You know the guy is good when he can make a cardboard box look much more impressive than my whole game. So shout out to Jamie, and if you're into 3D art, here's his community, which is free to enter, but it will be paid in the future, so I recommend joining now if you want lifetime access. I'm absolutely not spending a month of my time modeling all of these objects, that is where I'm drawing the line, so it's why I'm gonna spend Skillshare's money on them instead. Hear me out. I spent the last 2 hours making this beautiful shelf. It has a whole story, I mean look at the paint drops, it must have held paint. And I'm super proud of it. Shame I have to make like 50 more of these. And I already make everything specific to the game myself, and look, I could be wrong, I could be speaking absolute bogus, but I just don't think you'll be playing the game crying about the fact that I didn't make this shelf myself or that the light switch doesn't have my signature on it. In the beginning, I was looking at these buildings because of how surreal they look, so I took some time to try one in my game. And guess what? They don't look real. And it also turns out there's only ever been like one of these built, and it's in Japan, which is not very close to Eastern Europe as I've come to find out. So I'm gonna go do some research. And the timing is impeccable because I'm gonna go visit my grandparents in Eastern Europe, which means I can do some proper research for vermin. So I stole my granny's bike and rode alone into the forest at night. Now that might not seem like a good idea, and that's because it wasn't, but my thought process here is that the only way for me to make a good forest is if I experience it for myself. I hopped off that rickety old thing and I just started walking, which was probably also not an intelligent move, but I'm holding a camera, which means I realistically should be fine. I did end up surviving that, and the next day I hopped on my granny's bike once again and started taking pictures like I was some kind of communist building enthusiast, when the bike fucking discombobulated itself under me and I scraped up my dogs pretty good. And as I stood there with my bleeding grippers looking like I just put a hand in my ass, I realized that I somehow bent the cog inside the bike. Obviously I began working on it, and not 2 minutes after I ate shit on the pavement, 2 cars crashed next to me. And while I was still processing that, I'm gonna need you to suspend your disbelief for this part. An angry homeless man walked up to me, took his tools out of his trousers, and fixed my bike for me. And later in the week, I got lost in a corn maze, shot a gun, and found a birdhouse in a forest. That's like the same logic as putting a fish tank in the sea, hoping a family of mackerel move in. In total, I maxed out my free storage on Google Photos, so yeah, I'd say I have enough reference. Alright, I'm back, and I'm still alive, which means it's time to work. And by some miracle, some absolute divine intervention, I got into college, which is pretty cool. After refreshing my memory of what it's like to be in a forest, I looked at my game, and I mean, how did I actually think a forest was full of rocks? I didn't see a single rock in my forest. Where did the rocks come from? So I spent some time redoing the forest to get a better feel for it, and goddamn, making a forest is no walk in the park. You'd really think that spending €120 on trees would set me up for success, but it definitely didn't. Now a bad game dev would just grab the tree painting tool and have a forest in 5 seconds, or, you know, put rocks everywhere, but there's actually so much more to making a forest. It's literally like a web, and everything exists because the other thing exists. For example, here's a flower. It only grew here because the light can enter through the hole in the tree over there, where a seed flew in, and then a fox shitted on it twice, fertilizing the soil. But the only reason there's a hole up there is because a bird made a nest out of those branches in 1987. You see, it just doesn't end. Moss is only there because north. And I don't even know how, but I just realized that the character is absolutely minuscule, like I'm walking around feeling like a goddamn smurf. So I made the character a bit taller, and it feels a lot better now. Now the only problem is that I have to change like everything else in the game. I'd be making progress in all sorts of quirky directions, whether that be forwards or backwards, sideways, maybe even up. At least I can say that I made progress. Stay tuned for next month where I begin developing vermin. And before we do more creatures, I want to improve the sound of your steps because we only have the actual foot sound right now. Which, if you've ever worn pants or carried something, you'll know isn't the only sound that you hear when you walk. And for all the naked people out there with no arms, it sounds a little bit like this. So I took my military pants out and I began, I don't know, rubbing them, and then I got my school bag, filled it with water, and started. And I can't believe how well that worked. But you also have sounds when you crouch, so yep. And bingo bango bongo, we just gained like 10 immersion. When I was in that forest, I came to the realization that you can't hear shit when you're walking. I always found myself stopping to listen around, and I want to add that to vermin, so I did. Here it is. I could do sound design till the cows come home, but I really need to do some creatures now, so I'll leave it at that. My silly ass deleted all of the footage for the next few weeks, but I made 3 creatures. Now, there's no proof of me doing this, so I just hope you guys believe me. And one of them is a very good example of why I don't like the word monster. So far, we have 3 creatures, but 2 of them are very basic, so this is where we get into complex territory. Notice how I haven't called anything a monster yet? I think that the moment you give a creature a backstory, some intentions, some feelings and struggles, you remove that monsterness from it, which makes it so generic and boring. I see so many horror games where there's a monster which just wants to kill you. That's it, it's just evil. This bird is a great example of what I mean. I made this with the intention that it is suffering. She is a creature that lives in the swamp, which, as you may recall, has bacteria in it which dissolves flesh. So, the water basically ate its meat and she's gone blind, and drinking the water has caused a massive hole to form in her throat. Her chicks have probably starved to death by now as she can't fly back up to feed them anymore. She uses the clicking of her beak to navigate, and she's super sensitive to the sound of the Geiger counter, which she mistakes for the clicking of another bird like her. She lives only because of her motherly instinct to her chicks. Now riddle me this, when it tries to eat you, is it a monster? I think not. I think this thing is really terrifying, and if you make too much noise or if you don't stop every once in a while, the bird will come out and begin searching the area for you. She'll be clicking her beak, trying to map out the area, and you are able to shoot. Just make sure it hits, because you really don't want to miss this thing, trust me. Oh! But that brings up another thing. Since it's not a merciless killer, on some level you'll feel bad for shooting it. Or not, I actually don't have any evidence to back this claim, but probably. Before you ask, yes, I did voice act the bird, and the first attempts were anything but graceful. Then Josh came down like the angel Gabriel and told me that I was gonna give birth to a trash sound effect. He's a really talented music and sound designer, so he helped me with some advice on how to make an actual good sound. His website is in the description if you're curious. The screams do sound super badass until you turn off the effects and realize that it's just me screaming in my bedroom. It's finally time to tackle the buildings in the forest properly, using everything I've learned from Jamie. The first thing I made was this rural house, which would have been lived in by poorer old people who lived in the forest often on their own. He also gave me advice on textures, so I went onto the store with my sponsor money and there it was. Wall Decal Pack 05. It's literally pictures of leaking walls and shit, and I honestly never thought I'd be spending my money like this. To be fair, I did consider making it myself, but that would involve destroying my room, and I really don't have time for that, so this is an investment. Another creature I worked on was the hand in the canopy, which was the most difficult thing that I've ever done in my life. The model was the easy part, the behavior had me reconsider my career path, bro. It got so bad that the brainstorming showers were not even helping me. It would just go down and keep going, or not go down and grab the player anyways, otherwise the skeleton would straight up just do this, or that, or it would grab me with the top of the hand. Bro. So I'm back, it's fine, I made it work with one little issue. Nothing that would like break the game or anything, but if I turn it on, it will slowly, over the course of a few minutes, decrease my FPS until it hits 0, and then Unity crashes. But you know, that's actually a feature I planned from the very beginning, silly. I also recorded myself breaking each one of my fingers to get the sounds of the joints cracking, and I'll do the same to you if you don't wishlist Vermin on Steam. I'm making sure that this game is very faithful to the time and location, like I literally studied these road poles in Slavic countries to get that authentic feeling. I modeled these things and I copied the road sign, I added the concrete block to the side of wooden poles because that's just how they look. I bought a goddamn book on architecture just to make sure I make good buildings. Something that I just noticed is that the forest is beech trees instead of oak, but I think we might just chalk this up to historical inaccuracy because I already kinda went over budget on those trees. So everyone, can we please just keep this on the hush hush? I also bought a really nice car for €12 in Unity, and I made this post-communist looking building which I think turned out super cool. Just make sure not to step in the bear trap. Now you might be wondering where exactly that is, and that's a fair question because I did camouflage it pretty well. If you step in one, you walk slower, start bleeding, and drag it around behind you, which makes an awful sound. So the way to take it off is to be in possession of the new very complex item which I codenamed the branch. From now on, I'm gonna start working on gameplay a lot, and this is just one of the obstacles that I have planned. In the last video, I talked about this animal that will watch you from the bushes and get hostile if you get too close. And here it is. It does look a bit clapped, but I think it's good enough because you probably won't see him very much. I also want to lean into the act of killing an animal because it's not always pretty. Sometimes they suffer and slowly bleed out, and I'm not trying to glorify killing things in this game, so if you hit one, there's a chance that they suffer before slowly bleeding to death while you listen to their pain screams. Or should I say mine? Yeah, I did voice act it, and no, I don't want to talk about it, okay? Just leave it. I see all the comments asking when the game is out, or if I'm ready yet, and I'm gonna tell you that I have no idea when that will be. I'm not just gonna rush this because there's people waiting for it, and this is my passion, so if I release something that I'm not proud of or I didn't enjoy making, then what was the point of doing the whole thing? So I'm gonna take as much time as I need and make the game exactly what I want it to be. I also made the carcass eater, which I do want to clarify is not done yet. It's a creature that will be found eating carcasses around the forest. You get past it by crouch walking around it and hiding whenever it looks up. I decided to try find some eating sounds to add to it to make sure it's as immersive as possible, and this guy really thought he was cooking. You know, that was a little too high quality for my taste, so I made some myself using a banana. Now, if we go look at this guy's garden, we'll find a lake. You know how it is, Slavic people, you know. And for this lake, I made an investment in some water plants. Yes, I did spend money on that. I made a dock, and that in the distance over there is a dam, which has a new mechanic in it. When you go to the dam, there will be darkness blocking your path, full of little creatures watching you. So you can enter this building here, which has a dam generator in it, right next to those dam walls and those dam stairs. You'll have to go into the building and find some fuel to turn the dam lights on. This will scare away the creatures, letting you enter the dam room. I'm gonna be focusing a lot on the gameplay in the next devlog, so hit that damn subscribe button and see you later, refrigerator.